From the guys who brought you Fight Night picks, and for a short time, hitting above the Mendoza line, comes the Allen Brothers' next project. Let's tear the cover off and join in 15-minute card breaks.
And welcome back to another episode of Fight Night Picks Kicks. Make sure you check out our website, fightnightpicks.com. All sorts of great stuff. The previews, the predictions, the podcast, as well as our own Joshua Hart's full card betting guide for this card. There's 14 fights. You can't miss it. Some of his best bets. Tafon Chukwe. Maybe you like Devin Clark. Pepper him in as an underdog. Joshua is going with Anthony Smith. Some pop and popcorn fights. He has his big parlay of the weekend. You can also find the store over there. You're going to see Craig this week wearing our baseball jersey. There's only one left. It is a medium. You're going to have to check that out, including other things like our Under Armour cap, our Under Armour shirts, and so on and so forth. Make sure you check out the website. You're not going to want to miss it, fightnightpicks.com. And as we always say, let's get into it. Fight Night Picks is brought to you by Vertiball. Head on over to their website. It's vertiball.com. And listen, it's an awesome product. It's a local company out of New Brunswick, Canada. So make sure you support those guys locally as well as Fight Night Picks. But they're the only mountable portable muscle massager. They can stick on any smooth surface. They've got an industrial strength suction cup. Can support over 100 pounds of pressure. You can get really into those deep knots. I have one here at home. I use it for my back and my shoulders from holding up that Fight Night Picks Pick'em trophy. But listen, make sure you check them out. It's a great product. Like I said, they're recommended by physiotherapists, masseuses, and chiropractors across Canada, the US, UK, and Australia. And they're used by countless professional athletes like Minka Fitzpatrick on screen there, as well as Clelin Ferrell of the Raiders. So if you head into the cart, make sure you check them out. So I've got a Vertiball massager in my cart right there. Use the promo code FNP. You're going to save 10% off your order. You're supporting this company here that I'm very passionate about in New Brunswick, Canada, and you're helping out us as well. So make sure you check them out, vertiball.com, promo code FNP, 10% off your order. And without further ado, let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. It's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig and Matt Allen.
And just like that, we are back and getting set for UFC Fight Night, Smith versus Spann. As always, one half of your host, Craig Allen. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Craig Allen FNP. With me to my left, to your right, as always, Matt Allen FNP. Now, Matt Allen FNP, I see a little bit of glare in my glasses, but it doesn't look like it's that bad. I'm going to use them. I'm going to get excited about this week. We've got everybody over there in the chat. Matt Adams saying, getting into it. Hit that like. Zach G's over there. Tristan Showerhouse. Hopefully time is not a line that your back is all right. But if you want to check out Vertiball, you should. Jack Lawson, Lucas23, OJ's as always, and Voodoo Wiz. Hopefully everything went well. Obviously, you said you lost power in Hurricane Ida, so hopefully the family is doing well. And we appreciate everybody so far for tuning in. But Matt, overall, at the start of the week, this was supposed to be a 15-fight card, a couple of shuffles, couple of shimmies. We end up losing Nicholas Mata and Cameron Van Camp. I know we were looking forward to that one. That should have been a fun fight between a couple of debuting fighters. But overall, 14 fights, and it is a card that exists.
In life, there's only 3 guarantees: death, taxes, and Anthony Smith headlining Fight Night cards at the 205-pound division. It's just been a constant ever since he has made the move up from middleweight, and for the most part, the fights have been pretty exciting. I know for a long time I got on you because you love to mention the fact that he did headline the card in Moncton, New Brunswick, Canada, only a stone's throw away from where we are right now.
Look, there he is.
Exactly.
There's Vulcan. There's the side of my head. There's Anthony Smith. I'm not lying when I say that that's there.
And that resulted in a phenomenal fight. And for Anthony Smith, he's been here before and he's had these types of fights. He has been the proven guy trying to fight the more unknown prospect. And I do think this will be a phenomenal fight. I really do. Brian Spann has a lot to prove. And Anthony Smith wants to show that, hey, I'm still one of these top guys in the light heavyweight.
It could happen, 21. I'm up here from Russia 2 more weeks before I head back to the States. Let's get into it. And a great channel as far as football picks are concerned from It Could Happen 21. So make sure you check them out over on Instagram. Clay Loiseau is hanging out. Matt, let's flip it on over to our Fight of the Night screen, which is as always presented by Manscaped. Now, Matt, I see the odds before we started the show. They've gotten even squirrelier on this fight, and I thought they were going to be a lot closer. Obviously, I had Zarukian at the start. I believe, cat out of the bag. We still have Zarukian in this one. But if I know anything about Christos Giagos, he comes out hot and heavy in the first round, and there was evidence even in his last fight against Sean Soriano that in the second round he could still get it done.
Both these guys are sort of in the same position, and that's why it is weird that the odds are where they are, because Giagos is one of those weird unranked guys who maybe on his best day he could be one of those 10 to 15 fighters of the lightweight, and Arman Tsarukyan is the exact same thing. On his best day, he could probably take out a lot of those lower ranked guys in the weight division, so it is kind of surprising that they are matching both these guys up right now. But I do think this should be a phenomenal fight. This will be a much better fight than the odds at least suggest it will be.
I really hope so. I really do. And our second pick is, again, a fight where the odds are kind of way out to lunch. Montel Jackson, JP Buys. JP Buys had a lot of success at 125 and 135 outside of the UFC. I had a little bit of a back and forth in the comment section with, well, JP, he's a natural bantamweight. We're going to find that out tonight when he takes on a big guy for the weight class in Jackson.
And not only is Montel Jackson a big guy for the weight class, he has big power for the weight class too. So this will be really interesting to see. How does JP Buys react to the damage that Montel Jackson throws at him? Because Jackson is a big puncher for this weight division, but you can't just get caught up by his power punching. It's like Kevin Durant in scoring. You can't just look at what he does the best and forget about all the other skills that Montel Jackson has. He's a very, very slippery guy off of his back. He has good takedown defense, and he's got decent volume for this division. So I really do think this will be a fun fight. And again, the odds are crazy on this fight, which is kind of surprising. I know Buys did look great in his UFC debut, but he can't look any worse than that fight.
Yeah, I will have to see what happens in that one. But overall, this should be a great card because, hey, how can you go wrong with early fights and 14 of them to boot? As always, we want to thank you for joining in with Fight Night Picks, Kicks. Toss us a like, toss us a sub, because we get the challenge out there. 30,000 subs, we are going to throw in another show into the rotation. We're going to be breaking down and covering Dana White's Contender Series. Now, Matt, there was a big push to get to 27,000.
There was.
And you passed right there. We did that this week. We need 3,000 more. So if you know a friend, or if you're hesitating, you're hovering around that subscribe button, please do so. It means more work for us, but hey, we like it. Exactly. And I really like watching Contender Series because it is full of bangers. You also have Bellator this weekend. Yoel Romero making his debut against Phil Davis. Interesting card there as well. Austin Lax is tuning in. Sean McMinn as well. And the last thing that you can do, you can hit up the super chat if you want to support the show. It helps us out quite a bit. Now, Matt, what we always do with Kicks, we start from bottom all the way up to top. So let's do that. And we'll start with our bottom fight, so to speak. Emily Whitmire, I said it in the intros at the start of the week. She loved the fact that she was 4-4 as an amateur, so she decided to go 4-4 as a pro. She's taking on Hannah Goldy. This fight between a couple of strawweights, actually at flyweight, both women making weight successfully. You can see that from the graphic up there. But Matt, for me, I look at this fight, Hannah Goldy, she's kind of underwhelmed in her two fights. She's been a good volume fighter, good pitter-patter on the outside. Sean McMinn hitting us up in the super chat. Appreciate you. For Hannah Goldy, though, yeah, she's won a lot of decisions. She has, one knockout win out of her total 5 wins. The other 4 by decision. But she overwhelms a lot of people with her volume. Emily Whitmire, when she goes to strike, plants and throws, doesn't move her head, and gets hit a lot. So if you really, really like Hannah Goldy in this fight, I could definitely see that path to victory. It is right there. At the start of the week, I had Emily Whitmire based on her grappling. Are we still going with that? What are we saying here?
I still like Emily Whitmire in this fight. I don't think this is going to be a fan-friendly fight in the way that it's going to result in, crazy fireworks. I think Emily Whitmire is going to use her wrestling, but I actually think the physicality of Hannah Goldy is going to help her defend a lot of those takedown attempts. The issue comes down to Hannah Goldy's going to be on the defensive, I think, a lot in this fight. And it's really hard to strike with volume when you don't have any separation between you and your opponent. So I think Emily Whitmire, for lack of a better term, can bore her way to a decision in this fight. But I doubt either fighter is going to be going out there getting a decision. Or getting a finish. Sorry.
Yeah, for Goldy, she lost that fight to Belbizia. All 3 judges scored at 30-27. She lost to Miranda Granger. All 3 judges scored at 30-27. So MPTV, she beat Belbizia. That was a closer fight than just a 30-27 would have you believe. But for me, I look at this one, Matt. The odds are close. I'd keep it off my betting card. I'd call it a pop and popcorn. However many words I can throw out there to say I wouldn't bet on it. Whitmire open to -180. She's -125 right now. Goldy open to +155. She's a +103. And if we have a look, over at Fight Night Picks, over on the Instagrams, what do you hazard to guess the fans went with in this one?
I think Emily Whitmire will be a slight favorite.
71% of fans have Hannah Goldy to the 29% that have Emily Whitmire. So the fans have Goldy. The bettors put their money on Goldy this week. Again, it really is tricky when you look at this one, but I think up at 125 pounds, I'm going to give the slight edge to Emily Whitmire, again, with the grappling. I think that the added 10 pounds could help her a little bit, but for Hannah Goldy, is it going to be the Hannah Cyphers here? Like, is that what we're going to see out of her at 125? Because Cyphers did that, like, popping up and down and here and there and taking a lot of fights, and it did not work out for her.
We spent a sixth of the show talking about Hannah Goldy. I'm good. Emily Whitmire's probably going to win with her wrestling. I doubt either one of these fighters will be ranked, though, anytime soon.
All right, we'll move on to our next fight, Matt. I absolutely love this one. Like, if we're popping up trying to kind of guess a fight of the night, Gustavo Lopez, Heilialateng Lee is a really, really fun fight. And if you look at it, I mean, man, Gustavo Lopez, he can wrestle. He can box his way into the inside. If it's a good Gustavo Lopez fight, it's pretty ugly. It really is. And if it's a good Heilialateng Lee fight, we're throwing hammers and we're going to hope to knock the other guy out, die trying, and wrestle near the end of the fight. So that's where I do worry when I look at Heilialateng Lee. It really is a worry that in some of his previous fights, when it gets a little bit later and he gets a little bit tired, he starts to wrestle. I've seen a lot of people out there this week saying they like Gustavo Lopez by like a late submission. I can definitely see that one too, but it is a tricky fight. At the start of the week, we were split on the pick. I had Heilialateng Lee, you had Gustavo Lopez. I made arguments for both guys, so what do you think? Because I love this fight.
Gustavo Lopez kind of reminds me of Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler had a stat that came out where he's lost to the eventual winner of the NBA title in 4 straight playoffs. It's like, hey, you're losing, but at least you're losing to good teams, and that's kind of what Gustavo Lopez has going for him. Oh, you lost to Merab Dvalishvili and Adrian Yanez? Who cares? A lot of people have throughout their careers. And for Lopez, his grappling really is top tier, and the way that he is really able to scramble and then get into set positions is somewhat unique to this weight division. He can be held down by the superior wrestlers like a Merab Dvalishvili, and those top tier guys like even Ricky Simone, for instance, would probably be able to hold him down. But that's really when it comes into question, like how far down the elite wrestling ladder do we get until Gustavo Lopez is the superior grappler? I think this will be a really interesting fight because Lopez isn't great moving backwards when he's striking. He is decent moving forwards though when he is throwing his combinations together. It'll be interesting to see if he ever gets that opportunity though, because for Heilialateng Lee, he does like to move forward a lot with his volume and with his pressure. So for this fight, for me, it just comes down to cardio more than anything. I don't think Lee's going to get a TKO early on in this fight, so I do think that he is going to be throwing a heavy amount of volume, and I do favor Lopez the later that this fight goes.
Yeah, when I look at this one for Heilialateng Lee, I absolutely love it, and I had it written in the old paper notes, the fact that both of these guys train at big gyms. For Gustavo Lopez, he's been at Extreme Couture for quite a while. For Heilialateng Lee, he just made the move to Fight Ready with Eddie Cha and the crew, and I wrote down some of the guys. I mean, Eric Albarracin was in that corner. Is he in everybody's corner at Fight Ready? No, he's not. Is he in some weird corners sometimes? Yes, he is. Does he wear weird glasses? Weirder than mine. Yes, 100% he does, Matt. I'm going to do the old amalgamation of the odds because they are very close in this one. Lopez open to -110. They were pick'em odds. He's a +113. Heilialateng Lee open to -110. He's a -136. And if we have a look at Fight Night picks over on the Instagrams, not a lot of votes, but 58% Heilialateng Lee to 42% Gustavo Lopez. I still like Heilialateng Lee. Bub Collins, Matt, did you get to watching the first episode of Kingdom? You said you would.
I did. Okay, so I watched like the first 20 minutes, and it was pretty good. I'm going to go back to it. I just didn't really have a lot of time to go watch it, but from what I've seen so far, it was pretty good, actually.
And then he super chats you with it, so you really have to... Maybe we'll have to have a watch party.
That's what we'll do. Okay, after I've done the first season of Kingdom, when we get to 30,000 subs, I'll give like a show notes of every season of Kingdom. I will do that for the fans out there.
That one's fair. I wanted to go up to another comment up there as well. It was from Kyle the Doc. Gustavo Pez Dispenser Lopez. Yeah, he gets hit a little bit. There was Chris Paychick, and I really wanted to focus on this one. Gustavo's losses are better than Lee's wins. Kind of what you had said as well. I agree with that, but to me, I still like Heilialateng Lee. I think if he can push a decent pace early, he can really stifle Lopez, who's going to have to shoot for takedowns. If he does get them, easy path to victory for him.
And that's the thing. If Lopez ever gets top position, and I'm not exaggerating, like he's got that type of a game with his jiu-jitsu. I really do feel like even if they get tripped up, kind of like Jennifer Maya, Valentina Shevchenko, where I know I harped on it a lot, oh she had great top control. They kind of got tripped up and one got on top of the other. His top pressure and his control really is unmatched, and I do expect him to get a submission if he does have a few minutes left on the clock.
There's a lot of 50-50 fights on this card. Our next one is just that. We have Impa Kasanganay taking on Carlston Harris. And I'm so happy that Carlston Harris is getting kind of the credit he deserves coming into this fight. Not only did he look great against Christian Aguilera, but this is a guy that maybe you knew him coming into the UFC. Like, maybe you had to be a hardcore. But you look at the way that this guy fights, and it's 50-50 striking. It's excellent defensive submissions, but tricky, intricate ones when he's getting taken down, or he gets top position, or if he gets your back. This guy is such a special fighter in Carlston Harris. He gets that respect from the odds makers. I think he's gotten the respect from the fans. If we have a look at Fight Night Picks over on Instagram, it's not that close. 74% went with Kasanganay to 26% that went with Harris, but there were a lot of people that were happy about Harris in the comments section this week. So I do think this is a great fight. Kasanganay, Sanford MMA, looked amazing in his last fight against Sasha Palatnikov. And he's one of those guys that at 185, you could see it. He kind of conserve his gas tank or always look labored. It's tough to tell. He's one of those types of fighters.
He is, but at 170 pounds with his crazy physique, if he can keep a pace for 15 minutes, then he's going to be a real problem for a lot of guys at this division, because it's going to be weird for Impa Kasanganay. He's not a knockout artist, although he does have good striking. He's not really a submission specialist, although, hey, he has great grappling. He's a good all-around fighter, and that's really what this fight's going to come down to. I like what you said about Harris's striking. There's a lot of those 50-50 striking exchanges where he might get clipped by a big shot, but he can also hit you with a big shot. Impa Kasanganay doesn't really play that game at all on the feet. He is very defensively sound. He does have a very high guard, so if Harris does find himself throwing a lot of punches, just landing on the arms of Kasanganay, I could see Impa taking this fight over as it does go late. Because again, for a guy who did look kind of labored at 185 pounds, I don't really worry about his weight, or I don't worry about his weight cut or his cardio at 170 as much. And I do think a lot of that comes down to he's just a little more confident at this weight class.
So in the comments section, MMA Freaks, AG, Clay Loiseau, Richard Castro, Corey McGregor, Am I going way out of turn here? Matt W. all going with Harris. Justin Villegas as well. Todd's going with Harris. It seems like everybody's going with Harris, but did you vote at Fight Night Picks?
So this is the way that I see this fight. If Impa makes a mistake, Harris is more likely to capitalize and get a finish. If Kasanganay can just kind of stay all right for 15 minutes, like, don't take any big risks. Keep your guard really high. Use single shots to counter with power and just kind of keep Harris at the range and at the range of your power punches. Then I think Impa Kasanganay could probably walk his way to a unanimous decision victory. The thing about Impa is that he doesn't fight with this crazy pace. I'm not worried about him tiring himself out because he's not someone who's going to go out there and throw 100 punches in the first round and then be non-existent for the next two. I do think he has the lasting power at 170 pounds, and I do think he'll be able to get a win, although I have seen a lot of people pick Harris, and I can't really argue against it all that much.
Kasanganay open to minus 150. He's minus 118 right now. Harris open to plus 130. He is a minus 103. Todd says, I didn't vote. Didn't watch the videos yet. All right, Todd. Hey, that's honesty. You're here now. That's all that matters. I still have Kasanganay in this fight, though for most of it, I made a case that Carlston Harris can definitely win it. I think, again, with Kasanganay, it's that measured approach. As long as you don't kind of get thrown into the fire, which happens in Carlston Harris fights, I think he can have success in this one.
Goodness, I was in 5 places at once. Carlos Condit just retired. And Carlos Condit was like, hey, I'm only going to get into crazy fights even if it's at my detriment. Impa Kasanganay is the polar opposite of that, and that's why I'll probably win.
All right, Matt. Next fight, Erin Blanchfield taking on Sarah Alpar, and I spent a large amount of our video at the start of the week telling you that Erin Blanchfield's going to win, and Sarah Alpar is not that good. Alpar, to her credit, made weight and looked pretty good at 125, 126 pounds. So that's great. She's coming in here full head of steam, although, yes, she did lose that fight against Jessica Rose Clark. I mean that in the fact that she's had a long time off, a long time to train. Get ready for this weight class. Broman Gonzalez, I appreciate you and AG earlier. Appreciate the support from everybody over there in the comment section. But when I look at this one, Alpar, Blanchfield. Blanchfield's got that push. I mean, she looked great in Invicta. That one loss that she has to Tracy Cortez, I will take it to my grave. I thought she won that fight. I really do. If you go back and watch it, it was very surprising that Cortez won. Let's put it that way. But you come into this fight where Alpar's beaten bigger women at 135 pounds with her wrestling. We'll see how she makes it with Blanchfield, who is a Renzo Gracie black belt. Her striking continues to improve. She's one of those fighters that mastered the art of the ground first. And sometimes when the striking comes together, you get flatlined by a pure striker. But in this case, she gets a favorable matchup here against Alpar.
And that really is the key to this whole fight. This is a very favorable matchup for Blanchfield because Alpar, we kind of know what we're going to get. She's good at a lot, but great at not very much. And for Blanchfield, A, she's extremely young in her career, so we're going to see these massive jumps every single time out. And B, I just think she's the far superior grappler in the matchup.
Justin Franks hitting us up in the super chat. Certainly appreciate you and George Grund as well.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers for the great breakdowns and analysis as always. Now, guys, when I'm looking at this card, it's a 2 out of 5 on Fight Matrix. I know we're partway through. We might lose some people here. But it's a 2 out of 5 on Fight Matrix. You have 14 fights. This is quantity over quality, so don't get too hung up. I'm excited for next weekend. UFC 266 is absolutely loaded.
Brian Ortega.
That's it. I mean, I'm really psyched for that one, and there's a lot of fights that really we get into the weeds on them. But when I look at this one, Matt, as far as the odds, they're pretty rich if you're really in favor of Erin Blanchfield. She opened at a -180. She's -383 right now. Sarah Alpar opened at +155. She's +295. And if we have a look, Matt W saying GM3 signed a fight. Well, you know we're GM3 guys. 81% going Blanchfield to 19% Alpar. Yeah, I still like Blanchfield here big time.
No, I agree 100%.
All right, Matt, we move into our next one. MPTV saying Alpar has way better striking. She's going to beat the Eddie Bravo invite out of Erin. Yikes. All right, our next fight, Montel Jackson, JP Bays. Been a lot of props out there in the comments section this week for JP Bays. I've seen it. I've seen a lot of people saying, obviously, Montel Jackson, round 2, round 3 submission. I mean, look at the fight that he had against Brian Kelleher, for frig's sakes. He submitted him, so...
And Brian Kelleher's a pretty good grappler.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Montel Jackson is a very interesting fighter because he's long for the weight class. He gets taken down, but he can always get you in some pretty precarious positions out of that. So it'll be interesting to see if JP Bays goes full Extreme Couture, throwing hammers to get into a clinch to get the fight to the max. I think if he does all of that, he can get knocked out, he can get submitted. Like, it's a bad game plan to take on a guy like Montel Jackson.
That's what you don't love, when the one way the guy can have success is going to result in him probably being flatlined or submitted. This is the problem when you're fighting Montel Jackson. Montel Jackson, to a degree, kind of reminds me of Shogun, who, if Shogun really did have the black belt. Hear me out. He's got big power on the feet. He does kind of have submissions. Or he's got good combinations. But on the mat, he does have good defensive submissions. My problem with Montel Jackson, though, is he's one of our new candidates, I think, for that Louis Smolka effect type of a fighter, where, yes, I do really like Montel Jackson off his back. I do like his grappling, but he is a guy who's been held down in the past, and that's something that always does worry me about Jackson. His ground game is almost so good that he's willing to give away minutes and moments down on the ground, and that's really the only way I see JP winning this fight. If JP, let's say, gets an early takedown round 1, doesn't do a lot with it, but let's say he can do enough to stay active and keep the position, then Montel Jackson's going to be a little bit more tired. Bays may not have expended all that much energy to get the takedown. Then we can start to put together a bit of a game plan and a bit of a road for a win from Bays. It's just all of that has to go right for him to get the win. He eats a lot of damaging shots on his way in for his takedowns, and Montel Jackson throws with a lot of power when he doesn't let his hands go. I just think this is a really bad matchup for Bays, which is odd because it felt like he had, I'm not going to say a huge push or anything, but he had more than your average push coming into the UFC, and after such a bad debut, normally a fighter like him would be given, you know, a guy on 3 straight losses or a guy near the end of his career. They're giving him a really tough out, Montel Jackson.
I mean, you've got William who's saying JP gets it done. You got Kyle the Doc saying Montel, this is how we do it. Jackson, if we look at the votes, not close. 80% Jackson, 20% Bays. But I will say, out of the votes, there's usually one of those ones that's way lopsided every single week that ends up going a little bit sideways. If you like Montel Jackson, do you like him up to a -640? Like, he opened a -600, he's a -640 now. So I would say a lot of people didn't want to cook those odds because they've been out there just lying at -600 to start. Bays open a +400, he's a +458. So for me, I like Jackson. Phoenix is saying, wouldn't be surprised if Bays uses body shots to shoot for takedowns. It'll wear Jackson down enough that he can pull it off. Or, well, no or. I still get Jackson. So it could happen. 21 has Bays. Clay is saying Jackson round 1. I like Jackson in this fight a fair bit, but like -600,
If Bruno Silva can bust you up, then Montel Jackson can put you out. That really is.
I love Bruno Silva. I think that guy's special. Matt, our next fight is Rongzhu taking on Brandon Jenkins. We were so excited to make this video at the tail end of the week. I had a weird night coming home, and it just got even weirder with the fact that we made a video about Brandon Jenkins and Rongzhu. And I'm at Brandon Jenkins. For those of you who don't know him, you've got a little bit of time, like almost, I don't know, an hour and 37 minutes where you can find just about all the Brandon Jenkins clips you want on YouTube and Vimeo and Facebook and Twitter.
They're out there.
I had to go to the weird corners of the internet to find a little bit on Brandon Jenkins, but there is quite a bit out there. His caged aggression fights are on YouTube. Some of the LFA ones are in the weird corners of the internet. He's on Fight Pass for a little bit too. So Brandon Jenkins, special fighter. Rongzhu is such a fun fighter because for Rongzhu, it's a lot of volume. It's a lot of power. Give one to take one. Wrestle if I need to. Same thing from Jenkins. That's why the odds are still so far apart. And I said at the start, I can see value for Jenkins. You took Jenkins. I still took Rongzhu. And Noah is making a great point saying, didn't Rongzhu miss weight? Now, if I'm not mistaken, I did switch it on there. So I put 158 and then put it in brackets. Luis Rodriguez, you're on it too. He did miss weight. He came in at 158. Like, was it well, I guess that my fight wasn't going to happen against Dakota Bush, so I stopped cutting weight? Like, what do you think happened?
I just don't know where any of this Rongzhu confidence is coming from. I think he's all right, but I don't think this is some prospect that's like Sean O'Malley that's just going to shoot up the rankings.
You think Brandon Jenkins is?
No, and that's what I have to say. I don't think Jenkins is either.
I said in the video, I just want to throw this out there because it'll go out of my brain, so I apologize. Yeah. But Brandon Jenkins coming in the UFC with like a wild record. What is it, 15-7? And I threw out Derek Minner, the other guy that I wanted to mention, and he fights in a different way. But Kevin Kroom is another guy like that, where it's just like, oh, you fought guys that weren't that great. You got finished people. Then you come into the UFC and you submit Roosevelt Roberts, and what's the ceiling? Brandon Jenkins kind of in that category.
Brandon Jenkins is what I mean when I say MMA is an extremely offensive-oriented sport. Like, people don't really care about defense that much in MMA because when you're like Jenkins, if you just throw really hard and you throw a crazy variety of strikes, then they're going to land at a certain point. And for Jenkins, he does have a very fan-friendly style. It's very flashy. He's got spinning knockouts. He has flying knee knockouts. Like, if he has a 2-2 record or a 3-3 like he did in LFA, he's still going to be in the UFC. I could see him being the lightweights version of Mike Perry, kind of. Like, he could have fun fights with pretty much anybody, is what I'm trying to say. I just don't really know what I'm going to get from Rongzhu after his UFC debut, because he looked all right, but he also looked terrible by the end of the fight, so I don't have a lot of confidence in this fight either side. I like Jenkins for the odds, so I guess on a 14-fight card, I'll pick him, but not a lot of confidence.
So at Fight Night Picks for the vote, 70% with Rongzhu to 30% Jenkins. Will peel back the curtains. 265 total votes for Rongzhu to 112 over for Jenkins. Roosevelt Roberts get cut today? Did he actually get cut today? Like, is this news I didn't know of?
It's not great.
Well, that's not good. I liked him for some of his fights. OJ saying his corner had to tell him that he needed 2 pounds more. John saying Jenkins by knockout. And the question earlier about Dana White's Contender Series submitting this, that, and the other thing. You want the wildest thing? Go look at Martin Sano that's going to fight next weekend against Matt Semmelsberger. You want to see some messed up stuff? Go look at that one. Yeah, Matt, when I look at this one, I still have Rongzhu based on the wrestling training at Top Team and a little bit of volume. And if you can back up Brandon Jenkins, he kind of stops. Like, he really does stop. And I've seen him enough to see 7 of his losses, and I don't like what I've seen there. But if he can start to push his own pace, if he can work in some of those power shots, he's got a lethal overhand right. And when he switches to southpaw, all he does is kick. If Rongzhu's corner knows that, great, but we'll see what happens. On these short notice ones, it's tough to tell. It really is.
I just don't think it's as simple as when he's in one position, Rongzhu's going to be able to figure him out. I just think Jenkins as a whole is the more powerful striker out of the two. If Rongzhu is able to start putting his combinations together, then I could see one of the 3 punches landing clean and maybe hurting Jenkins and then finishing him up against the cage, but I still think shot for shot, and I do think that's what this fight's going to come down to. Jenkins has slightly more power.
Penny Kianzad taking on Raquel Pennington. Matt, one of these fighters fought for the Ultimate Fighter title. One of these fighters fought for, well, the division's title. How crazy is that? Raquel Pennington might not have the greatest record in her 5-on-in, but she's fought the highest level competition. I mean, you look back at it, Nunes, Durandamy, who's still ranked number 1. She beat Irene Aldana, who's right up there. Like, we're talking about some really, really big names. But, Matt, yeah, when we have a look at the odds for this fight, Raquel Pennington, bit of a mover and shaker, would you say? I mean, she's still a favorite. Open to -115. She's -129. For Penny Kianzad, open to -105. She's +107. So a little bit of money's come in on Pennington here. Kianzad, great kickboxing, great from the outside, and she's fought some wrestlers and some grapplers in the past. I thought she might have lost to Alexis Davis for what it's worth. Now she's taking on a fighter that's a little less output, a little bit less bang and thrash, a little bit more grappling oriented, where she has some issues. So if you like Pennington, maybe you see it that way.
This is a really, really weird fight because Penny Kianzad, if matched up with the proper opponents, could probably find herself in a title shot in like 18 months. I know that's a wild thing to say, and hey, Amanda Nunes would do awful things to her, but hey, she probably would to most people in that division. The thing about Kianzad is that they're just giving her awful matchups right now. Like you said, she may have lost the Alexis Davis fight. It was a really, really close fight. But the issue is that Penny Kianzad has a tough time with pressure-oriented, kind of wrestle boxers. So if you're trying to build this fighter up, you would think, hey, we're not going to give them another boxing-oriented pressure fighter. And that's exactly what Raquel Pennington is. If anything, she's just bigger than Alexis Davis and a little bit closer to her prime, if anything. I think Penny Kianzad is an exciting fighter at this weight division. And honestly, if you put Kianzad in there with, let's say, Irene Aldana, it would be a really, really fun fight, and it would be a fight that the fans would love. I just think this is a really tough ask for Penny Kianzad, and I do like Pennington's cardio as a whole. I think she's the much fresher fighter by the time the third round comes, and I don't think Kianzad can finish her before that point, so I think this could be one of those classic blood and guts Raquel Pennington unanimous decision type fights.
And I think Penny Kianzad just tap, 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 run away.
The only issue is that Holly Holm wasn't able to do that, and I think she could. It's just every time I think of one of those pitter-patter fighters who likes to jump in and jump out of the pocket, I think of Holly Holm, and the fact that Holm herself, the way she beat Pennington was utilizing her own clinch game. So I find it hard to believe that Kianzad's going to be able to create that distance a lot, but you could argue that way, and you could probably convince me otherwise.
At Fight Night Picks for the votes, 56% Kianzad, 44% have Pennington. Again, that's a little weird because more people have the underdog in the picks. And Raquel Pennington is the favorite over there in the comment section. Corey McGregor saying, I'm going Kianzad. AG saying Penny, also shoot fighting champion in Europe. She's got that grappling in her back pocket. And we've seen her do all right against certain grapplers. I mean, I guess the big ones, Sajara Eubanks, who looked friggin' great at 125 in her last fight. Albeit Elise Reed was on short notice. Connor Murray, we appreciate you for tuning in. And Zed Bazikpiku, stop asking the same question. It's coming. It's coming. So, Matt, yeah, when I look at this one, I still have Kianzad. You have Pennington, but I think this should be an interesting fight. Jace is saying bet the house on the over. The fight goes to distance is minus 325 if you like it.
This is one of those classic cases, though, of, okay, Penny Kianzad, you've been fighting the lower levels of competition in this division, and we know you're better than them. Raquel Pennington is kind of the opposite. You've been at the top for a while. You've started to lose to some of those top dogs. We figure out a lot after tonight about this division, because if Kianzad is able to get the win, then we could see her in, let's say, a co-main event down the road. You know, like a big fight in the women's bantamweight division. And for Pennington, if she loses this one, you don't really know what's going to happen to her.
That's it. B. Reed saying not sure what Pennington's motivation is at this part. Yeah, it is tricky. Mike Rodriguez is taking on Tafon Chukwe. This is the featured prelim, and they like to put fun fights in featured prelims. Matt, I remember when, was it Cesar Fajea fought Carl Robertson in a feature prelim of a pay-per-view?
I think so.
Yeah, the UFC did that, and I'll never forget. But yeah, when I look at this one, it's a tricky fight because Mike Rodriguez actually came in weighing less at 202 pounds. Tafon was what? 204.5, coming back up from middleweight. This is a guy that I thought he would be at 185 for, you know, an amount of time, but now he's moving up. Didn't look great in his last time out, and I think that can really be said and highlighted. And Matt, for Mike Rodriguez, it's been a weird run in the UFC because he's lost way more than he's won. His 5-on-in has a no contest. That was a John Allen, a decision he lost. He lost to Dawon Jung. He lost to Ed Herman in a fight he was winning. He lost to Danilo Marquez. His win was Marcin Prachnio, who was just like dust in the wind. And if you look at it for Tafon Chukwe, look good against Jamie Pickett, look bad against Junyoung Park. You could argue a 10-8 in the third round of that fight. So this is really going to depend. We've got a couple. Rodriguez, Spencer saying Big Mike taking home the W. Andrew saying Kianzad has an injured rib. And then also saying Rodriguez 100% has an injured rib. So I look at this one. It's a tricky fight. Tafon, less in terms of his reach. Less in terms of a lot of different things. Mike Rodriguez, very well rounded, I would say, but he can get hit. So I'm eager to see what we get in a fight like this.
Mike Rodriguez is going to have to catch Tafon on the way in. It's going to be a really weird fight because Mike Rodriguez, and people aren't going to like this, strikes a little bit like Conor McGregor. Like, he's sort of that outside sniper where once you rush him, that's when he's able to counter you and catch you and really do a lot of damage. if Chukwue is able to get his combinations going, let's say he's able to get Mike Rodriguez up against the cage, I think this fight's pretty much over. I really do, because Mike Rodriguez is weird. He kind of has Luke Rockhold striking defense where he likes to lean back and leave his chin really, really high, and I do think that if Tafon is able to put his combinations together, start moving forward, I think he'll be able to get the TKO win. I really do. This is going to be one of those weird fights, though, where nothing is going to happen until it does. I can see Mike Rodriguez and Tafon just looking at each other, standing in the middle of the cage for like 2.5 minutes. But once somebody does decide to pull the trigger, I do think it'll be over. And I do think that Chukwue is going to be the more likely to land that big shot.
AG over in the comment section, I couldn't agree with you more. And Tafon got to prove it to me here. But to go back to the comment before that, this is probably the best guy he's fought. I know this is going to be controversial. I still think that the win that he had kind of coming in and through against William Knight was probably a tougher test than Mike Rodriguez. But the thing that Rodriguez has is the sneaky submissions. He's got the volume, too, that can kind of play a bit of a part. So we'll see what happens in this one, Matt. As far as the odds, they're relatively close. You've got Tafon Chukwue coming in the favorite, open -110. He's -123. For Slow Mike, he came in -110. He's a +102. And at Fight Night Picks, Matt, the votes, 69% going with Chukwue to 31% going with Rodriguez. I still do like Tafon Chukwue in this fight. I think he's going to be able to get it done.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Matt. We'll move into our next one. Joaquin Buckley's taking on Antonio Arroyo. The blind date jokes were there. That this guy's not that good and he's not actually Thiago Santos's jokes were there. For Antonio Arroyo, he's tall, he's long, he can kick. But he's got to do that in the fight. Like, that's my big trouble. So when I look at this one, I have such a hard time trying to pick. Like, if Antonio Arroyo shows up and fights to his potential, awesome. But I haven't even seen it. Ever.
Antonio Arroyo is kind of like Bigfoot, where you just hear a lot of stuff about him, and then you decide to go look for him one day, and you're like, oh, yeah, there's nothing here. It's a big old lie. Because that's what it seems to be. We've all been sold this crazy skill set that Antonio Arroyo has behind closed doors in the gym that no one's ever seen. But Antonio Arroyo, to me, is 2 years away from being 2 years away. I don't think he has that good a defensive grappling. I think he's very hesitant on the feet because he is such a natural striker and he isn't great with his grappling that it does feel like he's always waiting on people to shoot at his legs. You could tell a lot in the Duran Win fight where Win is very one-dimensional. All he does is wrestle. And Antonio Arroyo, even in the striking, you could tell there just wasn't a level of confidence because once he did let his hands go, he would immediately get taken down. Now, I don't see that to being a big issue in this fight because I doubt Joaquin Buckley is going to shoot for many takedowns. I'd say he's probably the more likely of the two to shoot for a takedown if either one does, but for me, I just think Joaquin Buckley is going to peekaboo his way to a big knockout win. I think if he is able to duck and throw his overhands around the guard of Antonio Arroyo, I just don't think Antonio Arroyo is going to be there by the third round because Arroyo does stand very upright and he does leave his chin back. Again, one of those Luke Rockhold type characters. And the way Buckley throws his power shots is the type of guy, or he can land on the type of guy that Antonio Arroyo is.
And when you look at Joaquin Buckley, it's a cheap comparison, but in his last fight when he was taking on Alessio Di Chirico, the head kick knockout, he is the type of guy that has to crouch up, throw that big power. There's a great opportunity for Arroyo to throw his own head kick. Like, we've seen it done a number of times. So there definitely is an opportunity there when we have a look at the odds for this one. I mean, listen, Buckley's a decent favorite. Open to -190. Got as low as a -229. The money from Monday till now has come in on Arroyo. Buckley now a -195 or thereabouts. Arroyo now a -164. So if you really do like him, let us know over there in the comments section. Luca is saying, I don't see Buckley winning. Voodoo is saying, how's it going, lads? Good luck on your bets tonight. Voodoo hanging out from across the pond. 56%. Oh, there we go. 81% going with Buckley and 19% going with Arroyo. Apparently, I had my pictures in the wrong place, but that is the next fight. Yeah, for me, I like Buckley in this one. I think the power and the pressure are going to cause issues for Arroyo because he's one of those guys. He needs that distance. And when he's got it, it's great. We saw it against Duran Win. We didn't really see it against Andrea Muniz. And he's kind of confident in some bad spots, too. So, yeah, I like Buckley. And a great point by player owning. Yao Ming isn't the GOAT of MMA because he's tall. That's true. That's true. Neither Stefan Struve or Hungman Choi. So, there.
Hungman Choi did knock out Jose Canseco, though. And that's pretty cool.
So did Billy Football. So, there's that. Nate Maness is taking on Tony Gravely. And there's so many friggin' 50-50 fights. I mean, Matt Adams hitting everybody up looking for the likes. I'd love that because he wants Dana White's Contender Series show, and I want a Dana White's Contender Series show, so keep them flooding in. But Matt, Manus is a tricky guy, because I saw him lose to Lapalus over at TKO, and I went, okay. So he didn't beat the greatest level competition on the regional scene. He's from Kentucky. Are there great wrestlers from Kentucky? Maybe, but not really. And then he comes into the UFC and he has a 50-50 fight against Kid Kvenbo, where I thought Munoz won that fight. And then he comes out in his last fight and he looks a little bit even better, like he beats a Luke Sanders. So, listen, great wins there. But for me, Tony Gravely's that guy. He hits hard. He's gotten better since he made the move from top team Atlanta to top team in Florida. And I absolutely love the wrestling chops because he's the type of guy that can hold you down and just keep going to the well. He could get tired. Again, it could happen. 21. How many takedowns for Gravely? If he can control Manus, he wins this easily. Manus has good defensive submissions, but I like Tony Gravely, again, for all the different facets of his game. I think for Manus, the only path to victory, yeah, he could win a decision. He did that against a primary grappler. Johnny Munoz Jr. is one of the more credentialed guys outside of the cage in jiu-jitsu, no-gi tournaments, this and that you're going to find in the southwest of the United States. You like that? You like how I went with that? Very specific. But there were good opportunities for him, but his wrestling isn't like Gravely's. And that's where I like Gravely in this fight.
This is a tough stylistic matchup for Manus. And yes, he does have the submission acumen to pull something off if he is able to get Gravely in a bad position. But the issue is, I don't think he's just going to be able to get to that spot. With Gravely, he's such a physically strong wrestler that it's going to be really hard to get in top position against him. And in the striking, I really don't think Manus has much for Gravely. I think Gravely is A, the much more powerful striker, and B, he's got the more volume when he decides to throw with it. Now, it is odd. He does kind of use his hands to set up his wrestling more than anything, and that'll be the real key for Manus. Deciding on, okay, am I going to defend all these takedowns or am I going to let him take me down and then try to reverse, then try to scramble once we're on the mat? Because if he's just going to go out there trying to defend every single takedown attempt from Gravely, for what it's worth, I can see Manus getting tired throughout this fight, to be completely honest, and I really do feel like he has to outlast Gravely to win this fight. I just don't think he'll be able to do it, and that's why I like Gravely.
Matt, if we have a look at this one in terms of the odds, you've got Tony Gravely coming in here, the favorite, open to minus 225, he's minus 209 right now. For Manus, open to plus 195. He's a plus 172. 56% of the fans over at Fight Night Picks on Instagram have Gravely to 44% for Manus, so they're close in terms of the votes, but the odds are more for Gravely, so maybe you like Manus as the underdog with a good shot at syncing up a choke. Personally, I don't, but I think it is a very, very close fight. So Matt, we'll move on to our next one. And this fight is not close in terms of the odds at all because Arman Tsarukyan is what, like an 8-1 favorite?
Yeah, I think it might be a minus 1,000.
Yeah, like one site's minus 1,000. Minus 856 average. You open to minus 300. And for Christos Giagos, open to plus 250. He's a plus 561 right now. Derek D saying Munoz couldn't get Manus down, so why will Gravely? Because Munoz is a submission specialist, but not as much a wrestler. Tony Gravely is a great pure wrestler. That's why. But Tioga34XX, yikes, is saying Gravely is too aggressive. So Matt, Arman Tsarukyan, Christos Giagos, I want to hear from the people that have Christos Giagos to win this fight. I also want to see 3 more likes. Because I want this to get up to 300. We're not even to 100 right now. We're almost done the show. So it's got to happen. But yeah, Arman Tsarukyan Scramble Fest had a tight fight against a guy that a lot of people say future champ and have that allure around them in Islam Makhachev. Christos Giagos looked great his last time out. And his second turn in the UFC. His only losses are to Charles Oliveira and Drakkar Klose, who was supposed to fight Jeremy Stevens till he got pushed. So I love this fight. It should be Scramble City. In the striking, though, I mean, Giagos in the first round, a lot of power, so it is an interesting one.
This thing people have to remind themselves. Yes, Arman Tsarukyan had a close fight with Islam Makhachev. He also had kind of a close fight with Matt Frivola on like a day's notice, okay? And let's just...
He missed weight.
He did miss weight, but the thing was, that fight was probably closer than it should have been. He still won every round, he looked good, but Matt Frivola's wrestling was able to defend at least some of the takedown attempts from Tsarukyan. I just think Tsarukyan's a little bit overhyped. Like, if he was, a minus 330, I'd be fine with that for this fight. But the fact that he is in that minus 850 range, like, that's when Fedor used to fight, like, just a regular guy in Pride. Those are the type of odds that we're getting into right now. Exactly. with Christos Giagos, I don't know if I agree that he has big power early. I look at it more as he's got a lot of volume to go along with his power, and if one of those shots do land, then yeah, they can hurt you. But Giagos is one of those fighters to where he's his own worst enemy a lot of the time. He does have such a high output that he can kind of get himself in trouble as the fight goes on. And that's the weird thing about this fight. I know I'm going to zag here a little bit. I actually think the grappling of Arman Tsarukyan can make this fight closer for the Giagos than it would otherwise be, because Giagos is a decent defensive grappler, and he has good grappling cardio. I really do think that his cardio struggles are those fights like against Drakkar Klose, where he is forced to just strike, and I do think that that's the key to getting Giagos tired. So I could see Giagos actually making this a fun scramble type of a fight. I still think all those scrambles are going to end with Arman Tsarukyan in top position, and that's why I think he's going to win.
Rebecca Middleditch is going with Giagos in this one. I'm interested to see what kind of a fight we get out of Giagos, because for him, he's not training out of his regular camp. He went to Sanford MMA for this one. So you love to see that. We've seen a lot of fighters find success. I mean, Brendan Allen did to a great degree, and now he's going to fight Brad Tavares. So I like that fight quite a bit. Day Bay is saying amateurs, Day Bay. Like, we're 3 years plus. If we're still amateurs, then let's pack it up. For me, yeah, I still have Tsarukyan in this fight. We've seen that kind of volume striking work for a lot of guys against Giagos, and not to say that it worked for them to a win, but you see it in certain rounds that it works for them. Even Carlton Minus had a little bit of success. Now, Giagos out-wrestled and wrestled himself into exhaustion into the third round, but I'm still going with Tsarukyan in this one, though I could see it being a tight fight, and I don't like the odds at all. Matt, Ariane Lipski's taking on Mandy Boom, and Matt, for me, it's so weird that this fight is so high up on the card. Like, it seems like, oh, okay, it's going to be a little bit of a throw up. It's going to be a little bit of fun. It's going to be one of those ones where Mandy Boom's coming in. She's got the hype being, undefeated. She fought for TKO here in Canada. Hasn't fought in a little bit. She was thrown out of this fight. Not thrown out, but obviously didn't follow Proto Buddy. And now she's taking on Ariane Lipski, somebody who we were sold a bill of goods that wasn't delivered on.
Violence queen.
Now this fight is so high up that I'm eager to see what we get out of these two, because for Boom, it's primary striking. It's not a lot of volume, a little bit of power. And for Ariane Lipski, it's different every time she fights.
It really is. Like, no one knows what Ariane Lipski's good at. People are still trying to figure it out right now. Encyclopedias have been written on the subject, and people still cannot come to an agreement. Because Lipski in some of her fights looks like a phenomenal grappler in top and bottom position. In other fights, she looks like she has no idea what she's doing on the mat. And the weird thing about Lipski is that she has a very particular set of skills, but not like Liam Neeson from the Taken movie series. Like, Lipski's a good striker at distance, kind of, but she has really good leg kicks that she can only throw when she's on the inside. Like, there's no synergy with her game. You know what I mean? Like, Kyrie Irving, everything he does goes together. He's got great handles, great shooting, great passing, the ultimate offensive weapon.
Ariane Lipski,
it would be like if
people hate the NBA comps, so just give me one. It's like Ray Allen. All she does is throw three-pointers, but she doesn't. She's more like Brian Scalabrine sitting on the bench.
Not a great comp, Craig. Ariane Lipski, just none of her top-tier skills really go together all that well. Like, when you think of the best fighters in the world, for instance, Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira has phenomenal Muay Thai, really good technique. He's got good leg kicks, good body shots, things that set up his power shots later on. And then if all else fails, guess what? Charles Oliveira is one of the most dangerous men on the mat in the whole division. With Lipski, it's okay, you can kind of strike a distance, but you can get overpowered. You can get overpowered on the mat. Antonina Shevchenko, oddly enough, looked like she was Gary Tonin against you.
Pavel got her ready.
Exactly. For me, it's not that I love the game of Mandy Boom. Bim? Is that right? Bim?
Mandy Boom.
Bim.
You gotta go with the umlaut, like time is not a line. Hey, did I take German in university?
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I did.
So, I don't think Mandy has this really high ceiling in the division, but I do think she's good enough to beat Ariane Lipski.
I have such a hard time with this one, Matt. If I look at the odds for this fight, Mandy Boom is the underdog. Open to minus 125. She's a plus 103. Money came in on Ariane Lipski. Wow. Whoever would have thought that was going to happen. For Lipski, she opened a plus 100. She's minus 125 right now. The fans, Matt, 53% Lipski, 47% Boom, but it seems like a lot of people like Boom over there in the comments section. Derek D saying Ariana Grande is better than Ariane Lipski. I agree wholeheartedly. Are we still split on the pick here?
I think we are. I'm going to stick with Mandy Bim because I think she has slightly more lasting power in the UFC at this point. I just think we know what we're going to get from Lipski, and that's that we don't know what we're going to get from Lipski, and none of it's all that great.
Kyle the Doc. Lipski is like big baby Glenn Davis. We saw him play in person.
You know what? That's good because, yes, undersized, good mid-range, can't really dunk, but plays the 4. Like, that's the perfect comp.
Ended up playing NBL in Newfoundland.
He did.
So there's that. Iwan Kutsalab is taking on Devin Clark. Another really tricky fight, Matt. So you've got Iwan Kutsalaba that's great in the first round. He can wrestle, he can strike, he can power through you. Devin Clark gets finished in the first round, gets finished in the second round. If it goes to the third round, he's usually still fit and ready and wrestling guys into exhaustion. Does he do that in this fight? Or does Iwan Kutsalaba rock his shoe and put him out?
I have a question. We didn't prepare for this, but who are the best non-American Russian wrestlers in the UFC? There's not very many, though.
There's a lot.
There's a lot, but for the most part, the people who are the top-tier wrestlers in most of the divisions are either American, because they went through the whole collegiate system, or Russia, and it's very similar.
You couldn't be more wrong.
Hear me out. Ion Kutalaba, they're going to talk about his Moldovan wrestling credentials, and they are not held to the same standard of, for instance, U.S. wrestling credentials. I think Devin Clark's so much better.
He got 8 takedowns against Dustin Jacoby his last time out in the first round.
And didn't do very much with any of them. He got taken down by Jared Cannonier, who isn't a wrestler at all. My point with Kutalaba is that people talk about his wrestling, but it's not as good as you'd probably think. Go all the way back to the Antigulov fight. He immediately gets taken down, gets up, and then knocks Antigulov out. That's probably his biggest win, and why he was ranked for such a long time up until that point. I just think with Ion Kutalaba, a lot of people remember that fighter who dressed up like the Hulk all those years ago, who was that really fun knockout artist at 205 pounds, but I think the book's kind of out on him. He doesn't have great cardio. His defensive wrestling is a little sus, and if you don't get knocked out by him in the first 3 minutes, I think you're going to outlast him. And for Devin Clark, we've seen him in there against good fighters. I know he hasn't done well against them, or he hasn't beaten all of them, but I would still like his experience against the Anthony Smiths of the world, against the Alexander Rakic's of the world, to get him ready for this fight. I think Kutalaba is going to have an opportunity in that first minute and a half to get it done, but other than that, I really do like Clark by decision in this one.
Matt, the fans, 71% Kutsalaba, 29% going with Devin Clark. And we have a look at the odds for this one. And Iwan Kutsalaba is the favorite, open to minus 105. He's minus 160. Devin Clark, open to minus 115. He's a plus 134. So if you like Kutsalaba, you like Kutsalaba. Matt, when I look at this one, I have a hard time. I'm going to go with Iwan Kutsalaba. I started to think about it a little bit more. I like that first round flurry. I like that first round finishing possibility. I'm going to go with Kutsalaba. It's from training out of Extreme Couture. I know Devin Clark. He's a guy that's trained at big gyms. He's trained Jackson Wink for a very long time. But he struggled against guys in that first round storm. And I talked about it at the start of the week. I thought about it more during the week. And I got to go with Kutsalaba because he's fighting for his career. He loses here. He's going to like Octagon. And it's not even KSW, it's Octagon.
And that's why I think Devin Clark's going to be able to win this fight. Again, Ion Kutalaba's not in his prime, I don't think, anymore. I really do think that we're seeing a sort of, I don't know how far removed from it, but we're seeing a post-prime Kutalaba. Power's the last thing to go, and at 205 pounds, that can still take you, I would say far, but probably not to a title. So if Kutalaba's going to win this one, it will be by finish early. I just don't think it's going to happen. I like Devin Clark.
Matt, these fights are very difficult. I mean, Anthony Smith taking on Ryan Superman Spann. Tiogo is saying fight of the night. And we also had Phoenix saying so far he only named... Oh, we're still going at this guy? Just stop arguing over there in the comment section. Everybody, make friends. Make friends over there. We're here for a good time. All these fights... Like, I could go 0 for 14 this week, and I'm still going to have a smile on my face because we have 14 fights. So there's that, Matt. We've got Anthony Smith taking on Devin Clark. I showed the poster next to me. I showed the fact that Anthony Smith has been in main event after main event after main event. And yeah, he lost to Glover Teixeira in emphatic fashion. Yeah, he's lost to John Jones, even though he could have won the fight. Anthony Smith could have been light heavyweight champion of the world on a technicality, but he didn't because he's a man of honor. Now he's taking on Ryan Superman Spann here. And this is such a good one. Pablo, I'll be your friend, sure. But Ryan Spann, in a fight like this, the guy has size, he has reach, he has power, he has grappling sometimes. Sometimes he gets finished. But Matt, we get this fight where Smith is that wily vet. Can he pull another one out here?
Is Anthony Smith light heavyweight's version of Carlos Condit? Kind of? Like, I'm Yeah, I'm going somewhere with that comp because Anthony Smith, what's he really good at? He's got a great jab. He's a really good striker at range. He's got great front kicks and all that. He's good in close with his elbows, very similar to Carlos Condit. But what has been his Achilles heel throughout the years? It's the wrestling defense. Anthony Smith is on. And again, it is now the Anthony Smith category. I've done it. This is what it's called now. Anthony Smith has great jiu-jitsu. I don't think I'm going to get an argument from anybody when I say that. Anthony Smith has a ton of submission wins. He has a large variety of submissions. Like, everything about Anthony Smith's grappling game is great, and I really like it. The only issue is that those top-tier wrestlers can hold him down, and we've seen it time and time again. And I won't even say top-tier wrestlers, because when I speak of wrestling, that means that technically once they get the fight to the ground, they can pass guard, they can do a lot more than just get the fight down. Even guys like Alexander Rakic, who are much more athleticism-oriented than just pure wrestling, have been able to get Anthony Smith down and been able to hold him down too. Now, that was only a 3-round main event. That was a very weird fight, and hopefully we don't get any more of those in the future. But with this being a 5-round fight, I do like Anthony Smith in it. We've seen him get tired in the past against guys like Glover Teixeira. But the problem is, Glover Teixeira at 42 years old has very good cardio, and he's able to withstand a ton of punishment, get past the adversity, and then start to pressure you. I just don't think Brian Spann can get through that initial flurry of Anthony Smith, because a lot of people like to focus on the finish that Glover had over Anthony Smith. People forget Anthony Smith landed 200 significant strikes on Glover Teixeira before that. Like, that fight, if anything, is a testament to the durability of Glover Teixeira more than any negative about Anthony Smith's cardio. So I like Anthony Smith at the long range with his jab and his leg kicks. I like him at the close range with his elbows. And on the mat, I do think Ryan Spann will be able to win minutes. I do think he'll be able to get some ground and pound off, but I don't think it's going to be enough throughout a full 5-round fight for him to get the win.
Luis Rodriguez, Smith is PJ Tucker of MMA. Does he have a big shoe closet? Like Kevin Holland
He's
does.
better than PJ Tucker was.
Maybe, yeah, he's like the Lil Yachty of rap. But when I look at this one, Matt, Smith, again, yeah, he's got the staying power, oddly. He was able to beat Jim Crute early. Now, that's a first. I called him Jim. I didn't call him Jimmy. Like, you can never tell what we're going with in these ones. But, yeah, I like Spann in the first round, maybe the second round, but there's 5 rounds in it. Like, that, and that's where it gets weird, right? Like, we're playing MMA math here. You look at it, can Spann put him away early? If you do like him, I'd say that's the way it would go. And then for Anthony Smith, if you like him, I like him early, but I like him late as well. So I like the weapons that Smith has overall. I have him in this fight, and fight doesn't go to the distance. It's like a minus 308, so, you know, it looks like it's not going to go that way. At Fight Night Picks over on the Instagrams, 79% Smith to 21% Spann, but it's a vocal minority for Spann, it is.
If he can dodge a wrench, he can dodge a ball, and if he can beat Volkan Oezdemir, I think he can beat Ryan Spann, so I'm going to stick with Anthony Smith.
Matt's going with Smith. Matt, I'm going to be exiting out of some of the tabs that I have here so I can go all the way back through. What do you have to say about Fight Night Picks? We got a big fight coming up next weekend, or a big slate of fights. G's FX over on the IG's coming up with a poster for that one, or the thumbnail, I should say. So look out for that, because he does friggin' amazing work. But what else do we have going on with the channel?
I know personally I'm really excited for next week. We not only have the full breakdown that we'll be getting ready for next week's pay-per-view, but also Fight Companion. Make sure you guys check that out. We normally do question mark kicks 2 hours before the whole event starts, and then we do the Fight Companion, 5-10 minutes before the main card normally starts. So we're going to be very busy getting ready for that huge card, and I'm excited. I'm not a big Ultimate Fighter guy. I've said that in the past. They're on, season 55 of it, but it does build a lot of hype for that title fight. Like, I'm much more excited for Volkanovski, Brian Ortega, than I ever thought I was going to be, and I'm super excited to break that fight down.
I can't wait for it as well. We got a lot of great ones out there. Everybody over in the comments section, Todd saying that Smith is like the Lowry of MMA, and apparently I'm the Simone Biles of MMA breakdowns.
Wow.
I'm not a big gymnastics guy, but I'll take it. I will
good,
take
though.
it. Kyle Hall, are you guys going to do a Fight Companion today? Kyle, we're only doing them for the pay-per-views, and I'm trying to be nice to you and nice to Matt, so hopefully we can get the animosity out of that comment section. Billy is saying, is there a question mark kicks parlay? Billy, it's coming up as we go through and as we recap. A special one for you. I said at the start of the week I would, so I will. Matt, Emily Whitmire taking on Hannah Goldy. I'll let you take the reins on this one. What are we saying overall? Because it's weird that this one is at 125 too.
Ever so slightly, I think Emily Whitmire is going to be able to out-grapple her way to a win. And again, you can only win points by being offensive and not defensive in MMA. And the fact that Emily Whitmire might get some takedowns stuffed still means that she's going to be the one moving forward and probably initiating most of the action between the two fighters. Judges normally respond well to that, so I think Emily Whitmire Whitmire will be able to get it done.
First leg of the question mark kicks parlay. Fight goes the distance, minus 280 in this one. I'm not going crazy, but that's what I'm going with in this one. A minus 280 to kick it off. And I am going so light as I dip my toes back into the pool of the question mark kicks parlay. Normally end up with a nice plus at the end of the day. We're going with a slight minus, so that's how crazy this one is.
I wouldn't bet any money on this fight no matter what.
I'm going with that one. Matt, Gustavo Lopez taking on Heilialateng Heili. We're split on the pick, but I do really like this fight.
This is such a fun fight. Heilialateng Heili kind of showed what he was all about in that Casey Kenny fight. He's got great volume. He himself has great striking, and he does have a wrestling component that we haven't really seen all that much of, or we haven't seen the full, lengths of it yet. This will be a really fun fight against Gustavo Lopez, because Lopez has lost to those really, really great fighters in the division, and he's yet to have a bunch of showcase fights. Like, there's some fighters who, they'll fight 7 unranked fighters before they ever really get tough fighters. I feel like if Gustavo Lopez was matched up in the right way, he could very easily be one of those fighters who it's like, damn, did you see Gustavo Lopez on like a 4-fight winning streak?
What?
So, yeah, I know.
What?
No, I think if you matched him up with guys who are outside the top 15, he gets like a short notice guy, like he could get on a nice submission streak.
Over in the comment section, I gotta hit this one quick, Matt. Beavis and Butthead saying, guys, what do you think about Burns not being able to get a fight? I talk about it in Early Stoppage with John Franklin. The episode is in the queue. It will come out very soon, so please look out for that. And then I wanted to hit another comment, Matt, quickly. It was from R.S. LeBute. Can you predict performance bonuses? R.S. LeBute! We have a fight of the night screen.
We can't do everything.
We have a fight of the night screen. I still like Heilialateng Heili, but again, I think this is a very good fight, Matt. We move into our next one. Impa Kasanganay taking on Carlston Harris. Another 50-50. I have Impa Kasanganay by slight margin, but I spent most of the video telling you why Carlston Harris would win. Those are always the fun ones. You guys are awful. Try my best.
I think Impa Kasanganay is the better defensive fighter, and normally that doesn't win you fights, but I do think in this one it will. I think if he's able to stay sound defensively, avoid the big shots from Harris, and at least make Harris work early on in the fight, I think Kasanganay has more staying power, and I do think he'll be able to get a decision win.
Yeah, Matt, I do like Kasanganay there, and the question there was from Harry saying, damn, no up-and-coming prospects that have an easy fight. Erin Blanchfield's fighting Sarah Alpar.
Yep.
I've got Blanchfield.
Yeah, Erin Blanchfield should win this one.
All right, Matt. Montel Jackson, JP Bays, going with Montel Jackson here.
Terrible fight for JP Bays. Don't know why he signed the bout agreement. But hey, if he is able to get a win, this is a massive step up in competition for him, A. And B, if he is able to get the win, people like us have been counting him out all week long, and it'll be a huge opportunity for him.
100%. Rongzhu is taking on Brandon Jenkins. So, Rongzhu is a huge underdog. Brandon Jenkins, huge underdog, if I made the mistake there in my head. The value's there on Jenkins. I still have Rongzhu, and listen, if it was like even money, then maybe I'd be a little more tempted to pick him, like if I was gambling on it. But it scares me away how big of a favorite he is. I still like Rongzhu, but I could see a path to victory for Jenkins too.
I think Jenkins has the slightly heavier hands in this matchup. And for the odds, I don't think it's a terrible pick. There's, 14 fights on this card. You got to take a shot every now and then. I think Jenkins will be able to get it.
Real News MMA bringing up real facts. Bays is 5-0 at 135 and 4-3 at 125. But he never fought a guy like Montel Jackson. All right. Somebody's got 5K Whitmire. Are you insane? That's terrible. Panty Kansad, Raquel Pennington's second leg of the question mark kicks parlay at a minus 325 that the fight goes the distance. You put that with a minus 280 from Whitmire Goldy, you get a minus 129. So crazy stuff, but that's how I see it. I have Kansad, but again, it's going to a decision. So somebody's going to win.
Yeah, I think Pennington could just use her smothering style, move forward, and probably win a decision. That's right. Pretty much it.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's going to go to a decision, and I'm split on the pick, so there you go. Mike Rodriguez taking on Tafon Chukwe. Well, I've got Tafon Chukwe here.
I think if Tafon could just get on the inside one time, go to the body, and then end his combination to the head, he should be able to get a TKO win. I really don't think Mike Rodriguez has the striking acumen to really stay on the feet with Chukwe for any length of time.
B. Reed saying anyone that hasn't seen Jenkins' PFL fight needs to watch it. Man, poor Jacob Kilburn. It was like cold molasses in the wintertime, and that knee came hot and heavy. Joaquin Buckley's taking on Antonio Hoyo. I've got Buckley here.
The winner of this is probably going to win in impressive fashion, because the problem with Joaquin Buckley is it's a bit of a double-edged sword. He has great power, but he's also not the most durable guy in the world. So if Antonio Hoyo, who is massive, can land a clean strike, he may be able to hurt Buckley, but I still feel like Buckley has the way faster hands in this matchup, and that's why I've got to pick him.
We've got Nate Maness taking on Tony Gravely. I know I went back and forth a little bit on this one. I think you kind of did too. Like, we offered up both paths to victory, so take it for what it's worth. But I do like Gravely here. I think if he can chain his takedowns and just work a double leg, keep him down. Manus has good takedown defense, and it's a stat that's propped right up, right? Because we haven't seen him a lot under the UFC banner, but he did really well against Johnny Munoz, who couldn't get it. But I really do like Gravely in this one.
Yeah, I like Gravely. I like his wrestling game, I like his striking, and I like his power shots too. If he is able to get Manus reaching a lot and putting his hands down early, anticipating those takedown attempts, Gravely could very well end with a shot up top and put him out.
A guy who really didn't have any issues with the Fight Night Picks interview curse. He was able to get a win his last time out and a bonus, Matt. Arman Tsarukyan taking on Christos Giagos. Love the fight. I've got Tsarukyan here.
I do think Tsarukyan should be able to win this one, but it'll be a much closer fight than the odds suggest. Christos Giagos is a very, very tough competitor who has, I'm going to say good cardio, but hear me out. He at least has the staying power to where this isn't going to be like an Arman Tsarukyan submission win in 10 seconds. It's at least going to get out of that first round, so Tsarukyan will be tested a little bit throughout this fight. It's just kind of figuring out how tested he will get. I still think Arman Tsarukyan is going to be able to win it, though.
Matt, really interesting fighter next one out. Lipski's taking on Boom. So this is where I have to kind of go, again, break the fourth wall. So I remember watching Melissa Gatto highlights, getting ready for in the UFC. She had like years away. And really it's like, well, I don't friggin' know what we're going to get. Just like Martin Sano when he's going to fight Matt Semmelsberger. I'm going to give you the same thing. I'm going to tell you this now. The guy hasn't fought in years. And he lost 2 fights and then had a draw in his last 3 fights. And his last win was 7 years ago. So now he's going to come into the UFC. It's the same thing with Mandy Berm. You look at her fight, like, the level of competition, not the greatest. She gets hit, gives one to take one, maybe lands 2 to get 1, and that's where she's had success. So we'll see exactly what happens to her here. But, Matt, I like Lipski from the fact that she's fought UFC level competition, hasn't always won one. Lost one, but I still have Lipski in here.
My issue with Lipski is that she's fought at the UFC level. She doesn't have any wins over UFC level talent yet.
What about Luana Carolina? She beat Polyana Battaglia and looked good.
Exactly. So I do think Mandy Boom has one of the more winnable UFC debuts on her hands this time out. Lipski had a lot of hype coming in, and she's never really been able to justify it up until this point. So maybe she'll be able to get that big statement win. But I do think Mandy Boom is the slightly more active striker out of these two, and she'll be able to win a close decision.
Clay, I see out there the Jade Mason Long fight. Yeah, and it was a fun one if you want to go out there and watch that one. But yeah, I still have Lipski. Kutsilaba taking on Clark. I sat on the fence a little on the start of the week, and I did kind of like Clark's wrestling advantage, especially round 2, round 3. That's usually where he can take over a fight. But I like Kutsilaba with the early storm here. So I am going to go with Moldovan. He's really fighting for his life here.
That's my problem with Kutsilaba. Like, he doesn't really knock out those top guys in this division. He can beat unranked guys until the cows come home by first round knockout. But once you do start to chain together anything more than just like one rudimentary skill set, then he does struggle. I think if Devin Clark can strike his way into the clinch, mix in his takedown attempts, he might not always get the takedown, but just make Kutsilaba work early, collapse all the distance, because a lot of people think with a power puncher, you want to stand so far away from them that they can never catch you. That's the exact opposite thing you want to do. If you stand really far away and you zig when you're supposed to zag, they're going to catch you with an extended power shot where they can get the most power on their punch. If you crash that distance every single time, it's really hard to catch someone with a power shot when they're 6 inches away from you. So if Clark could just put his forehead in Kutilaba's chest, I think he'll be able to win.
And he has a great opportunity there. And then in the main event, going with Anthony Lionheart Smith in this one, both in agreement here.
Yeah, Anthony Smith looked good against Jim Crute. I know I had Jim Crute winning that fight going into it, but Anthony Smith showed off a great jab, really good takedown defense, and really good leg kicks too, and I think those 3 tools can beat Ryan Spann, so I like Anthony Smith.
My question mark kick parlay could go off the rails in the first fight, but I've got the fight goes the distance, Whitmire Goldy. I've got the fight goes the distance, Kianza at Pennington to a minus 129 at the end. It's nothing crazy, but it's just we're putting our feet back in the water. Really want to appreciate everybody for tuning in. Hopefully you had some fun. Hopefully you're going to enjoy the fights. Beavis and Butthead, I'm going to write that down in my notes, and we'll talk about it on an episode early stoppage, if that's fair with you. You seem to be like a prime candidate for that show. I think you would enjoy it. But Matt, we've got big stuff coming out. UFC 266 next weekend. We're going to have the Fight Companion. We're going to have question mark kicks for it. We also have more content coming out with 15-minute card breaks. If you haven't checked it out, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok. I've been doing a lot of work over on the TikTok. A lot of fun stuff over there at 15-minute card break as well. You can find a link down below in the description. I know you're really looking forward to and loving those fights next weekend.
Oh yeah, the pay-per-view is going to be great, so make sure sure you come check us out. Prediction videos, question mark kicks, fight companion. We got a busy week ahead, but I could not be more excited.
Those late likes and subs are appreciated because I didn't mention it, but again, at 30,000 subscribers, we're going to have a Dana White's Contender Series preview show. It's going to be a whole new look. It's not going to look like the rest of our shows. Manny Ramses brings up the greatest point. Poppin' popcorn Saturday weekend, fellas. I think that is exactly it for this card. That's why I'm not going too crazy. I'm going to sit back and enjoy it and really pump it for next weekend with UFC 266. Hopefully everybody enjoys the fights. You have a good weekend. And as we always say, Matt, with Fight Night Picks, let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, it's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig
and Matt.